I always mess it up, so I always let him say it himself. And also, we have Jada Johnson's grandparents standing right here. Richard, introduce yourself, Richard.
Hello, Rick Iwansky.
And grandmother.
Maria Iwansky.
And we have other family members here. Today, we filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of the estate of Jada Johnson. And my name is Harry Daniels, by the way, those who don't know. The case number 523CV00180 in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of North Carolina. The plaintiffs is grandparents, minor child of Jada, and the estate of Jada Johnson against the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Sergeant Timothy Rugg in his individual capacity. Officer Zacharias Borum, say that right? In the individual capacity, and John Doe's 1 through 100 of individuals we do not know, but we identify them in the course of this litigation of lawsuit. Today is a march towards justice, march towards recourse of trying to do our best to right a wrong that we could never really get right, because we cannot go back in time and turn back the hands of time and stop those 17 bullets from mutilating the body of Jada Johnson. Make no mistake about it. I know the Attorney General, if I'm not mistaken, the Attorney General is investigating this case for a criminal matter. However, justice delayed would not be justice denied in this case. We decide to move forward with a federal lawsuit because maybe we can push the envelope to get this matter started. Because, Javier, how long ago this happened?
July 2022.
July 2022. And nothing has been done. The citizens of Fayetteville, North Carolina, don't even know what happened. We got cases all over the nation. And even in your backyard, your back doorsteps, officers on your street shooting and killing individuals 17 times. 17 times one officer unloaded in the back of the head and then the body, 17 bullets, mutilating her body. There's no rhyme, reason, or justification that anything that matters should take place, especially when she was on the ground, not being a threat or resisting at the time she was shot and killed. We're going to go more details about this lawsuit. We're going to have a Q&A. Richard will come up and speak about his granddaughter as well. But I want to pass it over to Javier. We'll pass it over to Javier. Let Javier give you a little more details about what occurred that particular day as we go into the lawsuit and the complaints. And we'll have the Q&A. I'll leave it here for you.
Thank you, Harry. Good morning, everyone, on this Good Friday. What happened on July 1st, 2022 and July 2nd, 2022 was outrageous. It was egregious. The officers had multiple opportunities to de-escalate a mental health crisis. The officers of Fayetteville Police Department actually knew Jada already earlier that week. And instead of de-escalating a person clearly facing a mental health crisis who was not a threat to anyone but herself, instead of doing that, they tackled Jada and shot at her. They unloaded one round of bullets and shot at her multiple times. And while she was on the floor, bleeding to death, they decided to shoot at her again. A total of 17 gunshot wounds. And she died in that moment. What the police did to Jada, unfortunately, is not new to us as attorneys or to Fayetteville as a city. Because the Fayetteville Police Department has done injustices like this again and again and again. But this one in particular is especially outrageous because not only did an officer shoot 17 times, but the police department and the city has fought hard to keep that investigation under wraps, to keep details of what happened that night hidden from the views of their citizens. But with this complaint, we reveal what happened that night. We reveal the truth of what happened that night. And we reveal that what the officers did is they crossed the line. They crossed the line by shooting an innocent woman in the home of her grandfather, in front of the grandparents, and in front of her 2-year-old daughter. The officers pushed aside the grandparents to kill Jada. And so today we are seeking justice for Jada, justice for her grandparents, and justice for her daughter, who is now 3 years old and without a parent.
My name is Jada Johnson. I'll just say briefly, when this case came to our office, we took a good look at the facts. We did our homework, spent some time speaking with the family, doing an investigation, and what we thought was a civil rights violation. We got together and we thought that this lawsuit represents our efforts, and it certainly represents a quest that's now begun for justice for Jada Johnson. We hope the facts will show, and it will show, that her civil rights were violated. My sympathies are really extended to her grandparents who have raised Jada since she was a child, and they're definitely devastated as a result of what happened because they witnessed what happened. So with that, I say thank you for being here today. We'll certainly answer any questions that you may have, and maybe we offer it up to the family.
All right, so grandfather's going to come up and you got to prepare a statement. Just hold your questions. And like Javier said, is that the grandparents was present when this happened. So they saw exactly what happened, and the grandfather was actually pushed aside when they mutilated and killed his grandmother. That's no wrong reason. There's nothing that you can say to justify it, especially if she was detained and controlled. Unlawful use of force and excessive use of force. I don't think I need to say anything that offer anything. Shoot a person 17 times, especially when you shoot them and they appears to be dead and they have a death twitch, and you shoot them 11 more times. A bullet, those Glocks on the hole, 15 to 16, depending on the magazine. They say 1 in the clip, 16 in the hole. He emptied every bullet in her body. It's unacceptable. We will not stand for it. I'm going to have Richard to come up, prepare a statement. We will come back for the Q&A. So hold your questions. You can imagine it's very difficult for this family in its totality. This is their child who they saw was murdered. So, Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today and supporting Jada. Thank you to our legal team for putting this complaint together, Harry, Cornell, Javier, and all the others that did a very, very good review. Thank you to family and friends of Jada across the country and around the world. Thanks to everyone supporting justice for Jada. I had to stop several times when I reviewed this document the other day. So much horror. My own emotions triggered at almost every word to know that this child went through such terror before she was shot and killed. It's not just that she was just shot and killed, she was all the terror they put her through. It's horrible. And a lot has been said here today, and in the complaint, it's in great detail. If you haven't read it, please be careful. When you start to read it, it will be something that will shock you. You cannot believe that such a thing could happen today in our lives and in this country today. It was very clear the care and diligence that went into putting the events of 1 July on paper by this legal team. We trusted them to do it well, and they did an excellent job in 38 pages, almost twice an average complaint size. The criminality and negligence of the defendants was clearly defined and illustrated in that document. At least one other officer was also mentioned by name for their negligence. Now I'd like to speak directly to Mayor Colvin and the City Council. Thank you for your leadership lately regarding the mental health response here in Fayetteville, but now I ask you to go one step further. Very soon you will be asked to make a decision of grave import. You will be asked to provide taxpayer funds for the defense of these men in this case. Please read the complaint in its entirety to understand why we, the people, not just Jada, myself, my wife, and Nanaya, LJ, not just us, but the whole people, all of the citizens of this city, they are crying not to present any kind of help to these guys. Do not pay at taxpayer expense for their defense. We implore you to refuse these men any relief, comfort, or succor at taxpayer expense. There is precedent in cases where the police officers were not afforded legal defense at taxpayer expense due to clear disregard for procedures or their actions deviated from acceptable standards, as was shown in this particular complaint. Today, in this case, you can confidently set aside the obligations of agency, secure in the knowledge they violated your written procedures and manipulated the situation to its horrible outcome. It is they who violated agency by them having a clear disregard for proper police standards of conduct, by not following your written procedures and misrepresenting the city and the city's well-established policies and guidelines. Do not send the wrong message today. Do not say, we accept your behavior as representing our own views and policies and we will defend you. Instead, say, we do not condone your behavior. You violated our rules of conduct and we will not defend you. At the very least, I ask you, afford us, the good people of this city, the opportunity to approach you at a well-announced public forum to speak to you directly about it. Thank you for your consideration. And again, a huge thanks to everyone for supporting Justice for Jada. Happy Easter. God bless you and good day.
Okay, with that being said, we're going to open up for some questions. I'm sure Gilbert have a question or two over there.
Have there been findings from the FBI investigation that could advance this federal lawsuit, or will that not be allowed to apply anyway?
The North Carolina Attorney General's office have this case under criminal review. The Cumberland County District Attorney's Office have at least done what a lot of District Attorney's Office should do. They send it to the state for review for consideration of prosecution. Where that investigation at, we don't know, but we know they're reviewing it for prosecution of the officers involved.
Harry, we've been told that you've outlined very clearly in your complaint what happened that day. There are some folks who are unfamiliar totally because this has been a year since, about a year since this happened. Give us some highlights of what the complaint says. What happened that night?
Of course. I think to answer that question, we have to start a couple days before on Wednesday. On Wednesday of that week, Jada had a mental health crisis that unfortunately resulted in her being involuntarily committed to the hospital so she could be treated and supported. Fayetteville Police Department officers knew about the situation, and some of the officers who were there the night and a couple days were actually responding to Jada's crisis. This all arose because, unfortunately, Jada was trying to leave a very violent relationship, and it was very hard for her to get out of it. On that Friday, the hospital released Jada back to her grandparents, who take care of her. And then, unfortunately, around 9 p.m., her condition starts worsening, and again, she starts having another crisis. And in her crisis, she believes that her ex-boyfriend is out to get her because he has actually looked for her before and is sending her threatening messages that threaten her, her baby, and her grandparents. So in her crisis, she calls 911 multiple times, and eventually the police do arrive to the house. At this moment in that house, which is her grandparents' house, it's grandparents, both of them, her daughter, Jada. So officers come in and out the house. It's actually a long time of conversations, of de-escalation, of trying to get her help. She wants to go to the hospital. She tells the officers that she wants to be taken to the hospital expressly. And this goes on and on for many minutes. The officers, however, keep informing her that she has mental health issues and that they have to take her because she's misusing 911 calls and that they have to arrest her. Grandparents do their best to de-escalate the situation, and this goes on and on and on. Eventually, the situation escalates, and now Jada starts saying that she doesn't want to live anymore because she's going to be killed by her boyfriend. She's going to be killed by her ex-boyfriend. She's terrified, and the officers aren't doing anything to stop it. In her crisis, she believes that the officers are with her ex-boyfriend out to get her. During this crisis, however, she is not losing control. She is not running around the house. She's not screaming. She's calm. She's actually very passive. She looks like a zombie, I would describe, where she is cold, passive, saying words in a monotone demeanor. Unfortunately, because the situation keeps progressing, she does grab a pistol and points it at her head because she doesn't want to live anymore. The officers put their hands on their firearms. She notices this, so she puts the pistol down. She crouches in a non-threatening manner. The grandparents are still there, so they're able to de-escalate the situation once again, and now they're calming her down more. She's back to her robotic state. This keeps going on for a couple minutes, and then suddenly, that's when the officers tackle Jada, push the grandparents aside, and shoot at her in 17 times. And that's basically the story. There's a notion that Jada was posing a threat, but as the complaint details, this was a long night of de-escalating Jada, a long night of her being calm, robotic, passive, of her grandparents de-escalating the situation. But the officers decided to do what they did anyways.
Rick, you and I have talked about this, and Rick, come up for a second. You read a statement about this on paper. Talk to me from your heart. What happened that night?
I am unfortunately held with a court order from saying certain things today. But I can't say of what I saw. And what I saw was murder and escalation. There was a total lack of humanity and compassion. And those officers, I'm asking you now to arrest them today for murdering our baby.
It's what Javier stated. It seemed like that over the course of the night that they got tired. They want to go home. You therefore a person that has suicide ideations and thinking about suicide and it ends up in homicide. In even more detail, when she was shot and one officer had his knee on her arm where the gun was at, shot 11 more times. It's unconscionable. It's outrageous. The complaint speaks for itself. And yes, a gag order set placed by Superior Court of Cumberland County on what was on the video and things at capacity. But I'm not going to speak to that. But I'll tell you, everything in this complaint is 100% true. You can read between the lines. Any other questions?
Well, you could have filed this anytime. Any significance of waiting for Easter weekend to file it this particular weekend?
It's really no significance, but this is a very thorough complaint. I think this legal team, Cardinal and Javier, speak when I say this. We don't bring mess to the courts. We bring things that we take our time, detailed time, and put things together because we want to be successful. We want to get justice for this family. We just don't throw lawsuits up, just throw them up. Everybody know me that I don't bring frivolous lawsuits whatsoever. So we took our time to bring this lawsuit, and today, so it happened to be Good Friday, and today is just a day.
There were two officers placed on administrative duty. I called Fayetteville Police this morning to see what their status is, and I was told they're not allowed to review it yet. Do you have any knowledge as to whether those officers are back at work or still on administrative duty?
And that's a great question. Our position is, and what we've been told, is that it's still on review by John Stein's office of Attorney General of North Carolina. I don't tell the Attorney General how to do their job, and I hope they don't try to tell me how to do my job. But one thing I can tell you, this video speaks for itself. Myself worked in law enforcement, been in the military, rules of gaze of conduct, and I know you've been a ranger yourself. We taught a long time ago you don't shoot a man in the back. They teach us that when you a kid, you don't punch a person in the face. The cartoons, you don't shoot a person in the back. Yosemite Sam never shot anybody in the back.
Mr. and Mrs. Iwanski, I think part of what is so distressing about the situation is that not only did you live through this experience in real time, but you had to continue to relive it through going through these proceedings. Is that an element of this whole experience that you'd like to speak to really get across to the Fayetteville Police Department about what this has been like?
I'm gonna, at this time, I'm going to refrain from speaking. You can obviously it's very emotional, so it's a great question, and we're going to refrain from that time just for their emotional impact. Any other questions? Yeah.
So you're allowed to speak on like the camera video from the house itself, because we saw a situation where Jada actually came to the door, if I'm not mistaken, and spoke to the two officers, and they told her to get back in the house or something to that effect.
Listen,
That's not mind-boggling to you that it escalates where it did from that point?
not only that, you had emergency services outside, right? Emergency services told to get out. Health crisis. So you had these cops who, for whatever reason they took, and they decided to be commando. And actually, it was a moment where she was given some pills, and for a distraction, and she was tackled at that time. And the officers had complete control. Other officer came around and started shooting. Then I call it a death twitch, and he continued to shoot more times. I mean, let me be very clear. It's the reason why y'all ain't seen the video. All right, and thank God we're in the church, because I probably used some different words, but it's the reason you have not seen the video. When it's justified and everything's good, you saw it in Nashville when they went into the school and shot the person went into the school. We saw the video the next day. It's the reason why you ain't seen that video, and that video speaks for itself. And this complaint is very detailed. We wouldn't make these things up. We have a high esteem and members of the bar here and great attorneys here in North Carolina that I'm honored to work with. These things are not made up. This is injustice at its highest level. I've done these cases all over the United States of America. Gilbert, this is one of the worst. This is one of the worst. Any questions?
What's justice here for the family?
I mean, the only justice you can get is we can go back in time. But I think that the grandfather said it very clear. He believed they murdered his child. And, if it was you, I, or anybody else, I'd probably be under the jail in Cumberland County. So any measure of justice that we can get, we take it. But right now, we seeking, and let no mistake about this, and I always echo this, one of my good friends, Chance Lynch, civil rights attorney, this case is not about finance, it's about family. Jada's gone. She got a daughter. Somebody got to take care of her.
If you're Army Ranger, how do you restrain yourself that night?
Keep it brief.
I could say that as soon as I was aware of the situation, I tried to defend Jada, and I was unceremoniously kicked and knocked to the ground, and they continued to execute her on the spot.
All right, couple more questions. We're getting close. Going once.
Where do you see the time frame of your lawsuit? How long will it take before it actually gets to court and all that in the process that you're in?
Well, the next step, and that's a great question. Next step is serving the lawsuit. I'm sure the city is very aware of the lawsuit upon the advisory of it. You guys being here, if they don't, they'll know now. Serving it, and the good thing we are in the federal courts. I believe we have a judge there. I think. Let's pull it up for a second. I think the chief judge. Let me look at the file. I think he may be. We don't know. We don't know the judge. We don't know the judge at this point. It will be assigned as such, but the federal courts, they're known for rocket dockets to get it moving. That's why one of the reasons we take these cases in federal court, because they don't be prolonged in the state court. It's scheduled orders that we would take in this case. I mean, they may file a motion to dismiss. We'd be more glad to return to it, respond to it. So it should move very quickly. Pacers, you can look at it, flow it from there. Once we are going litigation, guys, we don't have no more conversation about it because it's part of being a litigation.
Any possibility of change of venue?
Well, that change of venue is subject to it if we get to trial and we do a question of potential veneerment and they know too much about the case and such or bias, so not necessarily on the grounds of change of venue at this point. So that's a long way to get there, but that's a good question though. Listen, thank you. Happy Easter. God bless y'all. And take care. All right,